Before we get started today, guys, I just wanted to make a very quick shout out and thank you to Zach Johnson in Adelaide in Australia. Zach took the time to leave us a glowing 5-star review, and I thank you very much for that, Zach. It's much appreciated and it does help with our rankings. So, folks, if you are enjoying the podcast, please go and leave us a review. It would help very, very much, and we would very much appreciate it. Or even a Google review. You can find us in Google as well. So, Zach says best free content available for small trade business, and then he said underneath that, I came across this podcast after searching for some business advice online, and I couldn't have found a better resource. I've now turned off the radio in the car, and I'm going through every podcast the SiteShed has from start to go. Awesome free resource, and if you even start applying only some of the tools you learn here, you will transform your business. Matt is very relatable, and content is super relevant, and is always explained in plain English. Do yourself a favor. If you're a small trade business, this podcast should be your Bible. Zach, thank you very much. I'm blushing, but no, I'm glad you're enjoying it, mate. And it was good to meet you the other day over in Adelaide as well. That was fantastic. Guys, as I mentioned, please, if you're enjoying the podcast, leave us a review or go and share it with somebody, or better still, do both. That'd be awesome. And of course, I do read all these reviews out as they come through. And so you will get a mention on the SiteShed podcast if you do take the time to leave a review. So thank you very much. And let's jump right in. Well, it's kind of fitting and kind of sad, I must say, that today marks the last episode of the 3-part series that I have conducted with my colleague, Rob Kropp from Pravar Group. The series is called How to Escape the $1 to $3 Million Nightmare Zone. And this is the third and final part called Profitability, Get Your Financial House in Order. I guess it's fitting that this is also the wrap up to the year with the SiteShed podcast. It is coming up to Christmas next week, and I'm going to take a week off. So I hope you guys had a wonderful year, and I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the podcast. You'll be glad to know that we will be back in full swing in early January. We are backlogged with content all the way through to March. So there's lots of good stuff coming your way, and there's even more in the pipeline. So there's some amazing things happening next year, guys, and I know you're going to be excited with it, and I can't say too much more at this stage. However, there's going to be some awesome things coming through in the community, and there's going to be some amazing incentives and products that have been coming through as well for the benefit of you guys. So please have yourself a wonderful Christmas. Be safe. Drive safely, stop, revive, survive. Don't drive when you're tired, all the rest of it. It's a pretty dangerous time of year on the roads, and I just want you guys to enjoy your time off and make sure that you and your family are safe. And we will look forward to meeting you back at the microphone in early 2019. So that is a wrap for this introduction. Let's jump on into this third and final episode with Rob. And guys, once again, if you like what you hear, please give it a like or give us a lovely Christmas review on iTunes. That would be fantastic, or SoundCloud or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you listen to this. Guys, as well, if you have been checking out the book reviews, please do me a favor and leave us I'll subscribe there, or give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying them. They've been a lot of fun and they're getting a lot of good interaction. So go and check those out. Apart from that, I think that's pretty much it. So stay safe, have fun, drink and be merry, and I will see you next year. Ciao. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys, and specifically Tradie Web Guys' new content creation program. Now, guys, I don't really get that excited very often about products and solutions that we release across at Tradie Web Guys, but I've got to say, this new content creation program is absolutely incredible. I'm talking common practice here for the clients that we're working with is to have their content ranking within the first page of Google organically within 1 to 2 weeks. Like, it is insane. Of course, it serves as a double-edged sword. It's there so you can communicate the caliber of work you do to your customers, but the search engine results we're getting from these projects is just mind-blowing. I cannot believe it. Anyway, guys, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content-creation. You can get to it through the homepage as well. But I really encourage you to fill the form in, guys, and see if it will work for you, because I can tell you now it's working for all of our clients and they are loving it. Go check it out.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the SiteShed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. My name is Matt Jones, and you're joining us today for the third and final episode of the How to Escape the $1 to $3 million Nightmare Zone and Reclaim Your Business and Personal Life series that I'm conducting with Rob Crop from Pravar Group. Rob, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Can't believe I got through that whole intro without a mistake.
You've done well.
A mouthful. So, Rob, this is the third part of the series. The first one was we titled Productivity, Be a Master of It, Not a Slave to It. The second part was Performance, Leveraged Through Effective People Power. And in this episode, we're talking about profitability, get your financial house in order. Listeners, if you want to make sure you're getting the best out of this episode, I would encourage you to go back and check out the first two, because the way that we've structured this series is they do lead into each other. So it will make a lot more sense to you to go and listen to the first two before you listen to this one. But if you don't want to, then good luck. So, Rob, welcome back. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this series. It's going to be a good one.
Yep. So we're wrapping this one up today with getting your financial house in order. And I suppose this naturally comes as a progression to, first of all, understanding your productivity and making sure that you're focusing your time in the right areas. Second of all, making sure that you've got the right people in the right place so that the business is set up to scale. Now we're talking about, right, now it's all set up to scale. Let's start getting some coin in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why the $1 to $3 million zone is a nightmare zone for trades and construction business owners is because they're stuck. They see work out there that they can capitalize on. They're working ridiculous hours. So we started talking about that in productivity. They know they need to hire people, but they don't know how, or they're not sure how to, or they're not even sure how they're going to fund paying for these people. But worse yet is people get stuck in this phase because they want to grow, but they've got cash flow problems. And cash flow problems is one of the biggest nightmares of any business owners, but especially between the $1 to $3 million zone it's a real issue because you're just beyond the break-even point, and this is where problems start appearing. And so in today's series, we're going to unpack what I want to give the listeners is 6 strategies that they can go away and work on how they can plug the holes within their financial bucket within their business so they can go and put cash, improve their profits and put cash back into their business. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the mindset that a lot of business owners have, which is probably causing their cash flow problems. Is the mindset that we spoke around in productivity is a lot of people have got that mindset is the longer and harder I work, the more money I'll make. And the reason why people work longer and harder is because a lot of them also have got cash flow problems. And so they think that they want to spend time with their families and with their friends and take weekends off and all that kind of stuff. But the biggest issues they have is cash flow problems. And so when you've got cash flow problems, I'm sure the listeners have understand. I know I've been there in times in the businesses I've had. I'm sure you've been there as well, Matt, is when you've got cash flow problems, you're not thinking about all the good things in life, are you? You're thinking about all the shit, the things that are going wrong, yeah?
Definitely.
And so cash is one of the biggest causes of psychosocial stresses in our communities. It's the biggest causes of relationship breakdowns, and it's the biggest reason why business owners go belly up in business. Either they don't have enough work to keep funding their business, or believe it or not, they've actually got too much work, and too much work sends them broke.
Yep.
And so this is why this series is so important, is because in order for guys to run successful businesses, you've got to know your numbers. You cannot be a business owner who doesn't appreciate or doesn't know the intricacies around the numbers of their business.
Yep. No, I love it. So, I'm really interested here, like when we're talking about the profitability side of things, like obviously it kind of alludes to, like we're talking about getting your financial house in order, it alludes to management, directors, owners, that kind of thing. But I think maybe on a more micro, maybe a more macro scale even, like is this a relevant conversation to people that are within the business? Like, is it important that they understand, I suppose, why it's so important that money needs to be made and how them doing their job delivers to the bottom line of the profitability of the business and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. And so this topic is mainly targeted at the director or the owner of the business. But it's also important that, and we'll talk a bit about it today, especially around job management, around that if you've got supervisors or operational people, they need to understand the numbers of the business so that they're managing their jobs to estimates and to quotes. And same with your estimators is they've got to know to make sure that they're pricing their jobs correctly, because if you've got key people within the roles and they don't understand the impact of what their decisions are, those people can really do a lot of damage within a business. So this is more targeted at the business owner, but then it's about helping the business understand how to communicate this down to their key people to ensure that the business remains profitable.
So I think that's one of the things that a lot of business owners do find hard to open up is that transparency when it comes to numbers, turnover, profitability, and all that kind of stuff. So because people sort of think, oh, look, he's turning $4 million, fantastic. Like the guy's loaded and he's paying me $100,000. But then you look at, like, when you break that down further and further, like the numbers really can tell a true story. Like, people don't understand the cost of running a business. And, I was out on job and I invoiced, $15,000 and I get paid, my hourly rate or whatever it is. But then when you look at it at more of a macro sort of sense, it really, I think, can avoid a lot of animosity within the workplace or with your staff if they actually understand where the costs are, where the costs go.
Absolutely. And I don't think a lot of employees understand the true cost of running a business. And I said the stats on Series 2 around the people side of things is almost 1 in 2 business owners are breaking even or going backwards. And the reality is there's a lot of employees out there who are making more money than their employers. And some employers are earning less than their apprentices. And and that's bloody scary. And in my opinion is, if you're not profitable, what's the point? Because as a business owner, you're carrying all the risk, you've got all the stress, all the pressure. What's the point in running a business if you're just making enough money just to work on wages? It's especially for guys who have legal obligations like builders and everything, like they can go to jail if something goes wrong. So you've got to make sure that you're in profit territory, because profit is an indicator of the health of a company. And if you're in loss territory, it immediately tells me that there's some significant issues going on within your business. And a lot of business owners either don't understand it, or they just don't love numbers, or they just don't appreciate what the numbers side of things is. So they bury their head in the sand and they wonder why they've got cash flow problems. So today is about bringing awareness around the importance of profitability, how we can improve it, and what's some strategies that they can go away to be able to fix it.
And I've been so guilty of that in the past. Like, I've just hated, especially in the early stages of business, like, just didn't even want to look at the numbers because I was so afraid of what that would look like. But then it's not until you realize that by doing that and sort of tackling the truth head on, that it's the only really way that you can sort of forecast and map out the future.
Absolutely. And one of our mantras at Pravar is we've got 3 guiding principles. And the first one is face the facts. You've got to face the facts around your financials, because unless you own up to your current financial situation, you cannot improve it. And when we start with a client for the first time, the first thing we do is say, show me your P&L, show me your numbers. And we internally call it a financial triage, and we're going through numbers, ripping it to pieces, because we need to, as a coaching team, it's negligent of us to be able to give clients advice on how to change their business unless we understand the financial implications of every decision. And so, because unfortunately, there's a lot of coaches and consultants out there who go and do this and go and hire this person and go and do that. Let's grow this. But they don't understand how the business is hung together financially. And they don't really understand that by making those decisions, you can have a significant impact on the business's financials. So as a business owner, cash and profitability is the lifeblood of a business. It's the oxygen. And so when you starve the business of that oxygen, it's going to die. And so it just naturally makes sense. Then why wouldn't that be one of your biggest focuses as a business owner, to ensure you understand the numbers of your business?
I know recently I've certainly had a massive revelation in that space through liaising with the guys at Cube, Matt from Cube Consulting, and their program. And it's just such an incredible tool to help you get real analytically, like your data, like all the data in front of you from a financial point of view, help you map and forecast. And it's incredible when you look at it. You go, oh wow, you mean that's all I need to do in order to get to $1 million at the end of the year? Like, it's really interesting to look at it from that perspective. And it's also inspiring. Like, it can be terrifying if you're in that position where you're like, holy shit, I've got no money and I don't even want to look at my numbers. But then if you look at it from the other perspective of, well, if you've got like a roadmap, all I need to do is this, this, and this in order to get to here, then it's kind of inspiring, because it's not actually always that much work. It's just a consistent it's just consistent execution of doing the small things.
Absolutely. And we got a saying in coaching is that clarity and confidence around your numbers gives you the conviction to be able to move forward. Because most people struggle to move forward because in the back of their mind, they're like, I've already got cash flow problems, or I'm not making the money that I thought I'd be making at this point. Subconsciously, they're thinking, what's the point in growing my company? Because all I'm going to do is get more nightmares. And so they're scared about taking on extra work because they've got problems now. And it's like, well, am I actually going to be able to be profitable if I take more work on? And so it causes, when you don't have clarity and confidence around your financial position in your business, it causes inaction and it causes stress, frustrations, and then it causes business problems. And then that flows into the relationship. You argue with your missus or your partner, and you become withdrawn and internalize things, is because these are all just symptoms of business owners who lack the propensity to want to understand their financial position of their business.
So in this episode, we're talking about the 6, what did you call it? Profit and cash flow, something or other?
Yeah, there's 6 profit improvement initiatives that a business owners can get stuck into. All
right, cool. So let's dive into those then. So what's the first one?
Yeah, so with a business, let's use the analogy of a leaking bucket. And when you got holes in a bucket, it doesn't matter how much money you tip into the top of the bucket, you're going to have money leaking out everywhere, or you're going to have water leaking out of the bottom of the bucket. And so when we're thinking about these 6 strategies, I want the listeners to be able to think about, well, my business is a bucket, a financial bucket. And before we start scaling a company, what we've got to do is make sure we plug the holes in the bucket to ensure that every dollar we tip into the top of the bucket, we're retaining and maximizing the profit that we make on that additional work. And I think we mentioned that in episode 1 when we were talking about marketing activities. You've got to make sure you have all your numbers dialed in to be able to ensure that every time you then open the floodgates from a marketing activity, you're actually maximizing the sales price, the profit you make from that marketing, and also the ability to use that as a repeat customer. So there's a prime example there. But what most business owners do is they've got this mindset is that more money will make my money problems go away. And so they've got cash flow problems at $1 or $2 million. They scale up thinking that that's going to fix the problems. But heaven behold, their cash flow problems follow them. It's because they've got all these holes in their bucket where every time they scale up and take on more work, all they're doing is tipping more work in the top end, and all that money is just flushing through their business due to inefficiencies within their operations, yeah?
Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. I think that's so important that people understand the difference there. So is that the prelude to these 6 steps, or is that the first one?
Absolutely, that's the prelude, because business owners need to understand is that the principle that I'm trying to hit home here before we get into the 6 is that if you can't manage the money you're already making more money isn't going to fix the problems.
Yeah, gotcha.
All it's going to do is amplify it. So first of all, there's always a mindset element to every strategy, and the mindset's got to be to a business owner is we got to fix our current business in its current state before we start adding layers of growth. Yeah. And a builder wouldn't go and build level 2 and 3 on an apartment block if they haven't built a strong foundation. So why do the same in their own business?
Yeah, okay. No, that makes sense. And so does this 6 steps, do we sort of dive into how to fill the holes in those buckets, or is that not what we're talking about here?
Yeah, absolutely. So
okay, cool.
Number 1 is, I'll go through them and then we'll talk about some examples. Number 1 is you've got to have the right pricing strategy. That's first and foremost, is because if you don't have the right pricing strategy and pricing structure within your business, you're going to leave money on the table. Absolutely. And I'll talk about an example there. Number 2 is you've got to add value, not discount. Now, I understand that a lot of trades business owners or construction guys, you've got to negotiate to a point where you've got to get to the price to sometimes meet a budget. But competing on a discount strategy is never going to get you anywhere, because all you're doing is eroding your margin, not anyone else's. Number 3 is negotiate prices from suppliers. Now, I'm not talking cutting people off at the knees and screwing people down. I believe that everyone needs to be paid fairly, but as a business owner, you've got to negotiate, and you've got to be able to some people get caught in the trap of just using preferred suppliers, and then they don't I don't want business owners your listeners to get caught in price checking and all that kind of stuff all the time, but you've got to make sure you're getting fair prices. And that's number 3. Number 4 is effective job costing. If the listeners here are not managing their jobs by good quality job costing, they are absolutely leaving money on the table. And it generally means that their hours are blowing out through poor productivity and management of their guys on site. And it means they're not managing their costs well. So using the likes of someone from Clinton from TradiePad and his team to be able to get good job management systems in place to be able to manage the business not only makes the operations more systemized and efficient, it actually helps you make money on the jobs that you're doing as that you're actually running as well. Yeah. And we'll come back to that one. I've got a great example on that one. Number 5 is measure and manage productivity. And you've got to measure the productivity of your guys, because if you don't do that, you'll find that you'll be handing money out to your team members. They'll be really underproductive, and you won't make the money you want. So we'll talk about that one as well. And then the last one is you've got to manage your fixed expenses. So you've got to manage the operating costs of your business to be able to keep all that under control. So what I find is that when a business owner's got cash flow problems, these are the 6 holes that we go straight to and find what's going to be the biggest bang for their dollar to be able to plug the biggest hole so we can retain as much profit within the business so it doesn't slip out the bottom end.
All right, perfect. Well, let's jump into the first one.
Pricing structure. I've got a great example of a painter that we're working with at the moment. He's got 17 blokes. I couldn't understand why was it that he was losing money hand over fist, and that he thought that by putting more painters on, he would be able to get churned through more work, and he had the ability to be able to make the business more money. When we looked at his pricing structure, his mindset, Rob, was I can't charge more. The market's already given me pushback. The common story. When he went out to the marketplace, he realised that he was about $10 an hour per person short in the marketplace.
What?
And so
that's a lot over 17 guys.
$10 per 17 guys per week per year is a few $100,000. And so a lot of the mindset is I'm getting pushback. I can't raise my prices. I can't charge that because people will say no, and all those types of things. Absolutely, there is absolutely market pressures and a point where the market will push back on pricing. But I would absolutely encourage, there's so many people in the trade space who are it's a race to the bottom mindset, and it's a dangerous game to be in, yeah?
No, 100% agree with that. I think that's relevant to any vertical, to be honest with you. Like, it's certainly not specific to trades.
And so competing on price is not going to get you anywhere. And every time, if you've got someone who is trying to undercut you, let that customer go, because every time you just keep going lower and lower and lower in your price, you may as well not even do it. You may as well go broke sitting on the beach. Yeah. And so for this guy here, we said to him, great, let's get the new pricing structure at this certain price. Let's get a couple of jobs out there, because he's already flat chat. He's already booked out for a couple of months. And I said, mate, if you're already booked out, that tells me you're in demand.
Exactly.
And
or you're not charging enough.
Or you're not charging enough, yeah, obviously. And we tried it on 3 jobs. He didn't get any pushback.
I'm shocked. Not really.
And so, and we're like, mate, can you see that you don't have cash flow problems? You just got a pricing structure, and you've got all these guys and all these mouths to feed. It's just that in the business, for the amount of people you've got in there, you're just not pricing your jobs correctly. And as a result, you're just losing money.
We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport, because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem, because first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you. So to ascertain that he was undercharging, did he go around to competitors and ask what they were charging? Is that basically, did he get like do a bit of market research?
Yeah, he did a bit of market research, and also that he had plenty of work on it. I'm like, mate, if you've got plenty of work on, then that tells me your pricing's not right because you're in demand. And when you're in demand, you've got the ability to push your prices. You're able to push the envelope a little bit. And when you can demonstrate capability, demonstrate great communication, you've got the ability to demonstrate to the marketplace the value that you bring, then that's when you're able to move your prices. When, like I see in the Facebook group that you've got, where some people are struggling to charge $70 an hour, but you've got other plumbers who are charging $120 an hour, and so or more. It's a mindset, and so a lot of it comes back to the business owner going, I can't charge that. That's just a mental blockage that they think that they can't charge that. When they can, they've just got to work out how to charge that and how to communicate their pricing effectively.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big problems is the fact that they don't really have clarity around what that price needs to look like in order for them to make a profit. Like, and you see all this crap in the media as well, about, plumbers make $100 an hour. Like, if the plumber's charging you $100 an hour, he's losing money hand over fist. I can tell you right now, by the time you take out all of his operating costs, expenses, wages, salaries, insurances, blah, 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 like he's in debt, So I think a lot of it is understanding. I mean, that's, I suppose, our responsibility as well, Rob. Like, we're out there to sort of educate, these guys as to how they should be charging and how they need to be what they need to be charging in order to make money. Correct.
And it's but it's also in the trade thing. Like, there's so many people in the trade who are just undercutting everyone. And as a trade, I think that the good guys have got to rally around together to be able to support each other, to hold firm on pricing. And eventually, and I know it's tough because there's always going to be people coming in and undercutting the market, but I can guarantee they will not last. And so if you're getting undercut, stay true to your pricing, because those people will come and go. They'll be flash in the pan businesses. And if you can demonstrate your ability to, like, we're working with an arborist at the moment, is his prices are pretty good pricing, but he's guaranteeing quotes to be done within 16 business hours, in and out the door, with really good documentation, really good communication, and every safety measure under the sun to be able to demonstrate why he charges like that, compared to going against the guys who are backyard guys with a man with a van and a chainsaw. So are some people price sensitive? Absolutely. Are they going to go with that guy who charges a shitload? Yes. Less? Absolutely. But that's that market. If you don't want to play in that market, don't play there. Go and build relationships and go and serve your market who value the pricing that you're willing to charge. I think, and that is such a empowering position as a business owner, when you can be in that space where you know who your ideal customer is, and you're willing to turn work away from people that are not. And like, we get it day in, day out. Like, we're so strict with who we work with over at Trade Web Guys, because we just don't want to work with certain people. We just know they're not our customers, and we know that they're probably the people that, like, it's like the startup mentality. Like, most of our clients are not startups because they're often after the cheapest solution, and they're not really willing to invest in the future. And it's an education thing again. But, I think it's so relevant to any business to have clarity around who that customer is. And I know, like, even in the early stages, like when you're sort of clambering hand over fist just to get jobs through the door, like, it's hard. And I'm not saying you should always do that. You shouldn't always turn work away when you are desperate. But, when you get to a position where you're not desperate, it's such an empowering feeling. Absolutely. And I think that even with builders, like, I know one of the biggest, I got one guy in mind, and I'll talk to him about the job management system. I'll use him as an example. But so many builders, this is where a lot of business, especially when you're doing residential construction, for example, so many business builders get caught in that trap where someone develops a set of plans, they give it to the builder prices it up, sends it back to the owner, and they want a champagne build on a beer budget. And the builder will go, well, that's going to cost you $750,000, and the business owner and the homeowner will go, well, we've only got a budget of $650,000. And so what most builders then do is go, all right, I was going to go in at 20% margin, but how about I just drop the prices? And how about I come in at 15% margin? And what they're doing is they're discounting, and they're actually ripping their family off, because what they're doing is taking that money out of their family's livelihood, flushing it down the toilet, and they're saying to that person, your money's more important than mine. That's what they're ultimately saying when you discount. And what I say to our builder clients is, when you get pushback on your pricing, you go straight back to the homeowner and say, great, well, this is what the price of your current plans are at the moment. If that doesn't meet your budget, what do you want left out of your plans that is going to get us back down to your $650,000 budget? So it's a positioning play. So you're not reducing your prices. What you're doing is you're positioning it back to the homeowner to be able to say, what do you want left out so we can meet your budget?
Yeah, exactly right. No, that's awesome. So that was number 2, right? That was so the first one was having the right pricing structure. Number 2 was adding value, not discounting.
Absolutely.
What the third one was?
Negotiate prices from suppliers.
Yep. Okay.
Now, this is a bit of a tricky one, because obviously, let's use the builder example. The builder doesn't want to go around and screw prices from every plumber, electrician, and sub-trade that they've got. So you don't want to be... We've just spoken about having the right pricing structure, but now we're talking about negotiating prices. This is more around firming up prices and holding people accountable to their prices. That's what this is.
So I'll tell you an interesting story. I don't know if you may or may not be aware of this, but it's really clever actually what they do. It's sneaky, it's painful for the consumer, but it's really clever. Reese, who supply basically plumbing stuff to plumbers, they've got a system in place. It's really clever, where they've basically, every store has a daily budget allocation, and they've got to hit this budget every day. And there's a algorithm in their pricing computers where if they haven't got to a certain level in their budget at a certain time of day, the algorithm puts the prices up on the products. And so you could go in the morning, you buy something, you go back in the afternoon, it'll be a different price. And so a lot of the business owners are actually clued into this, and they know that they go through the invoice and they go, nah, wrong. They send it back to them and then they readjust it. It's sneaky, but it's clever. So this really ties in, I suppose, what you're saying, like negotiating your prices and understanding what they are and then keeping them accountable to it.
Absolutely, and this is where you've every hour that you're getting caught down reacting and responding to problems, you're not focusing on these things and plugging the holes. And this is not only negotiating prices, but you've got to keep you've got to keep people honest, because it's not that I'm saying people are out there to rape, pillage, and plunder their contractors or anything, but you've got to make sure that you get the right pricing at the right price, and you've got to hold people accountable to that price. And that's what's really important, because otherwise, every time you overspend, you're actually losing margin on your work, and that's margin that's either going to end up in your pocket to build wealth, or it's money required to be able to keep funding your growth of your business. So having the right pricing structure and negotiating pricing from suppliers is really important.
It's amazing as well, like how much those, small increments can add up, when you're talking about, especially buying things from suppliers. Like it might only be 10, 15 cents, but when you look at it, at a macro level at the end of the month or end of the year, it could be massive, thousands.
Absolutely. And using an example of a pricing structure, I can use so many examples. We did it with a plumber. He was $15 an hour underpriced. That equated to $200,000 worth of extra money for him. We did it with a mechanic. We looked at all his pricing structure. It was $150,000 worth of extra profit he could have made that year just by tweaking his prices and getting better deals from his suppliers. So I'm not talking $5,000. When you're in the $1 to $3 million nightmare zone and you're looking at this going, I've got cash flow problems. If you go straight to these strategies, you'll literally find $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 sometimes in extra cash a year, which will then flush through the business over time as you make these changes.
Well, I just did the figures on the painter you were talking about, and that turned out to be $1,360 a day that he was leaving on the table. If you times that by 5, that's $6,800 a week.
Times 48. Let's be
times that by 48, then you're looking at $3,264,000.
$302,000.
$326,400. Like that's an insane amount of money.
So that's a $300,000 turnaround that will no doubt help this guy have in the next 12 months.
Exactly, by putting your prices up $10 per guy, or putting it up to market level, we should say, where they should have been anyway.
So his mindset was, well, let's go to 20, let's go to 25, let's go to 30 blokes, because the more blokes I'll have make more money. Nuh-uh. Let's get your 17 guys structured, because if you remember the principle I said at the start is if you can't manage the money you're already making, don't try and make more. Just manage what you got really well, and you'll be able to maximize every dollar you got. So
the next one is effective job costing.
This is one of my favorite go-tos with a client, because it scares me that business owners are signing contracts or doing jobs worth $5,000, $10,000, $100,000. Some builders are doing jobs on $1 million. We've seen a contractor do a $4 million contract, and he had no job costing in place, and it actually cost him $4.5 million to run the job. And so for all the listeners out there, if you're not managing your jobs in terms of productivity and the dollars element in the way that you've estimated, you are absolutely leaving money on the table. And a great example of this is helping a builder in his guys were saying to him, we're busy, we need more carpentry labour. And so, he put on a couple of extra blokes. And when we looked at his business, he was like, I can't understand why I'm hemorrhaging cash. When we ripped apart his business, for the 6 blokes that he had 10,000 available man hours for a year. And for the work that he had in the pipeline, it equated to 4,000 man hours. So He immediately had 3 extra blokes than he did not need. And that came down to his estimating was on point, but he wasn't scheduling his work properly. He wasn't managing his guys' schedules properly. He wasn't managing their hours accordingly. There was no communication of delegation of how much work time needed to be done, because he would just go, right, guys, I need you to go and put these frames up. And the guys would be like, oh, okay, no worries. And they'd just bang nails in and off they'd go.
Grab a coffee.
And it's not like they were taking the piss. It's just that they had poor leadership. And so when we did that, we've actually trimmed back his team, and he's actually doing double the amount of work now with half the team, and he's going to have a couple of $100,000 net profit turnaround this financial year, purely because now we've got some really good job costing in place. He's using Workflow Max. That's one that some of our clients use. Some people like it, some people prefer other systems. But there's a prime example is when you get really good job costing in play, you can not only manage your schedule properly, you can manage your labour accordingly, but then you can send out purchase orders and cost all your costs back to that job. And then you can look at the job and go, right, am I actually making the money that I'm expecting to make as per my estimate?
Yeah, so important. I know when I used to work, when I was working as a plumber in the construction field, I know the boss was saying that, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was true or not, but he was saying a lot of the times, and I think it was true because I spoke to a lot of companies back then, they were doing the similar thing. Like it was so tight on winning work with builders that they would go in at effectively cost and hope to make money out of things like variations. And I was like, what? Yeah, he's retarded.
Yeah, it's scary. And that's how the big guys play. But for small businesses in the people that we're talking to today it scares me that people are going in at $100, $200 million contracts. They're signing contracts with their customers and they don't even manage the jobs properly from a financial point of view. It's pretty scary.
It's pretty scary that they're actually getting the jobs in the first place. Anyway.
And so it's another example of that is, I've got the stats here because I really wanted to hit home this point, because a lot of people go, well, I don't have time to get job management software into my business. And I know I've got to do it, but I just don't have the ability to make it happen. We've got a client who runs another construction guy. He's got a job on at the moment. He's 18.8% under budget. And so that's a $79,000 saving on his estimate. Job 2 at the moment is performing 34% under budget. That's $148,000 under budget. And he's saying at this rate, he's looking at executing his job, a residential construction, at 25 to 30% GP on that job. And that's purely coming down to his ability to schedule well, manage his labour, and manage his costings very, very closely on every build.
And so is that as a result of implementing technology like project management or whatever?
Technology.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just can't believe people would even consider going into business in that sort of business without it today.
And so it just shows that for him, there's there's over 200 grand GP that he'll make extra this financial year, and he doesn't even have to take on, that's an equivalent of an extra job.
And it costs him $50 a month.
Correct. But that's because he understands that if I manage these jobs really closely, imagine what it's like when he takes an extra 2, 3, 4 or 5 jobs on at a time. Every one of those jobs are going to be optimized. So coming back to the principle at the start is, if you can manage your business in its current state and get it optimized to a point, then you've earned the right to be able to keep scaling your company.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it. All right, what's the next one?
Measure and manage productivity.
Okay. Sounds obvious, but it's certainly not.
You've got to measure the productivity, you guys. It's as simple as that. And again, you've got to use software to be able to do this, because if you don't have your finger on the pulse around your productivity of your guys out in the field, you don't know if they're making you money or not. And I was speaking to a business owner the other day. He's doing like $2.5 million. He's got like 10 or more blokes on the road. He's still out on the tools and he's losing money. I said, mate, for that there, you should be making a couple of $100 net profit, not losing money. And so that tells me that either your pricing is wrong or your guys aren't being managed accordingly, especially if you're still out on the tools. And I said, so tell me how you're managing your jobs and how you're managing your productivity at the moment. And he goes, I'm not. And so immediately there, as his coach, and for my team, my team and I, that's going to be the biggest low-hanging fruit that we're going to be able to fix in his business, because if he gets that right, it's just going to bank cash in the next few months.
So does that come down to, is that like really project management? Like, but from, I suppose, not so much the job side of things, but like the delivery, like deliverables, like making the guys accountable to specific tasks, right?
Absolutely, because you've got to communicate to your team of what your expectations are. Because it doesn't matter if you're a plumber, electrician, or a builder, or a tiler, or whatever it is. You've got to set. You've got to communicate to your guys of exactly what your expectations are. I remember we're still working with this mechanic. They just love cars, and so of course they're going to tinker away at cars, and then they log all the hours, and they're like, oh shit. We've had a lot of fun fixing this car, but we can't charge the customer that much. There's been no accountability around the numbers.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So is the answer to that, what is the answer to that? I mean, I know we can talk about technology and all that sort of stuff, but I suppose this ties back to what we spoke about in the first episode, really, doesn't it? Like, you're talking about the departments, you're talking about the roles, then the responsibilities within the roles, and making sure that the team's accountable to their responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the ability to be able to ensure that everyone's accountable to an outcome. You've got to be outcome focused. And as a leader, you've got to set expectations. And going back to your questions at the start is you've got to be able to communicate to your guys. They got to understand how the job is hung together from an estimation and a quoting point of view. Because a lot of business owners get caught because they're like, oh, well, this would take me 8 hours, but no one works as hard as the business owner. And you've got to expect that your team members are going to be slower than you. And so you've probably got to allow a little bit extra time, or you've got to be accepting that they're going to be less productive and they'll do it slower than you. And you've got to accept that 5 people doing it 80% as good as you is better than you doing it yourself as 110%.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, you've got to communicate the hours allowance to your guys, so they're crystal clear on exactly how much time they know they need to spend. And if they're going to go over, they've got to flag it early with you.
Love it. All right. And then the final one is?
Manage fixed expenses.
Okay. And so what are fixed expenses? I mean, would you call wages a fixed expense, or is that more talking about things like rent, vehicles, tools?
Rent, vehicles, tools, all the other overheads. I remember we did this exercise with a client. He ran a security business, and he was doing like 1.5 mil, and so he's not multi millions by any feet. He went through every one of his costs and just went, do I need it? Do I not need it? He saved 50 grand a year just by going, don't need that subscription, don't need this, don't need to pay that, negotiate my insurances, negotiate this, negotiate that. He just went and negotiated a whole heap of his operating expenses and then started trimming out the non-essentials in his world. He saved 50 grand. So there's a couple of grand a month easy that he saved straight up. And so there's money. When a business gets to a certain size, you could easily trim out probably 10% of fat in the business, which is just unnecessary spending.
It's so true. I mean, obviously I work in the digital space and there's so many tools and stuff that we use, but like I've got to go through regularly. I don't do it enough, to be fair. I'll probably do it after we've had this conversation because I'm always like trying new products and trying to streamline processes. And then you look at hang on, I'm getting billed monthly for this thing as well. Am I even using this? And then, before you know it, it's $12,000 a year. And you're like, what? I'm not even using this thing.
Absolutely. And there's $12,000 gone. And it's not like you've got to, again, going back to the example we used on another part of the series, is if you spend $10,000 on unnecessary spending, you don't just have to make $10,000 in sales to replace that $10,000. If you're running at 25% margin, you've got to make $40,000 just to pay for that $10,000 of unnecessary spending.
Yeah.
And so if you trim cost and still make that extra money, then all that's going to flow through. So I'd really encourage the listeners to run lean and mean, not fat and lazy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it comes back to like, again, I keep banging on about it, but when you go back to the department role responsibility thing, and you can see, okay, well, I can replace certain things with technology, I can replace certain things with staff, but it all sort of ties in. It's all relevant. What tool could I potentially use here, which would save me employing someone to do it? And that's a massive overhead or a massive direct cost that could be potentially avoided. Just having clarity around what you need to do and how it needs to be done, and then what could be put in place there to deliver on that. So important.
Absolutely. And so this is where all the 3 Ps of foundational growth all tie in together, because so many people are spending so much time doing unnecessary shit, not making the money they want, and it's having an impact on their family, and they can't understand why their business is plateaued. But it's all tied in together because they all hit. The reason why all these Ps hinge together is because, first and foremost, you've got to understand where all your time is going. You've got to get out of this mindset of, I've got to spend more time. Time's good. It's all about time. Time manages itself well. It's about priorities. Then when you understand what you've got to strip off your plate as a business owner, then you've got to be able to work out, well, what team member or system do I need in my business to be able to unlock growth? Then when you unlock that growth, and I want a business owner to be able to think that if I get 20 hours a week off my plate, what can I do to that 20 hours to be able to grow? And this is why it's not uncommon for our clients to have double, triple, quadruple levels of growth in the next 12 to 18 to 24 months after we take them through these first 3 Ps, because they get time back, they focus on the shit that matters, and lo and behold, their business grows. But the whole thing around the restructure then gives them time back. But the 3rd P around profitability all hinges this together, because every time you make a change within your business, whether it be time or structure, it has to be underpinned by good financial management. Otherwise, you'll send yourself broke by making decisions that you don't understand the financial implications.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, does that pretty much conclude that episode, Rob?
It does. The 6 holes. I'd really encourage the guys who are listening to really pick the biggest thing that's going to have the biggest impact. The takeaway from this series is pick the biggest thing that's going to have the biggest impact on your cash flow and profitability in the next 90 days, and just go and tackle it.
So you guys out there listening, that concludes the 3rd part of the 3-part series we've conducted. The series titled How to Escape the $1 to $3 Million Nightmare Zone and Reclaim Your Business and Personal Life. That was the 3rd episode. So that was profitability, get your financial house in order. The 2nd episode was performance, leverage through effective people power. In that episode, Rob was talking about, I suppose, the reality of if you want to scale your business, you need to make sure that you've got the team in place and you're bringing people into the right positions and they're delivering on those roles. And then in the 1st episode there, we were talking about productivity, being a master of it, not a slave to it. So that really came back to making sure that, I suppose, you're focusing on the important things and you're ascertaining what parts of the business you can effectively replace through staff or technology, which we covered in the 2nd episode. Now, Rob, you've got some resources that you want to leave behind, which is going to be available through the show notes and the resource section of the site shed. Thank you for that. That link, guys, if you want to head across to thesiteshed.com/resources, all that stuff will be available in there. Rob is in the Facebook community, so head across to facebook.com/groups/the site shed. That's our private group. You can get to it through the website as well if you want. Rob's in there and he's always answering questions. Very valuable. Thank you for being a part of that, Rob. And of course, if you want to reach out to Rob personally, you can get him at Pravar, Pravar group.com. And did you want anywhere else to get hold of you, Rob, or is that good enough?
They can shoot me an email. Mine's rob@pravargroup.com.
Yep.
Or we've also got a Facebook group, a Facebook page as well, so they can grab us on there. And I'm pretty. Please reach out to me there, and I'd love to be able to help if anyone's got any questions from this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, guys, like Rob's got an amazing program over there. It's super. If you're in that space where you want to, scale from the million, 1.5 million up, Rob's program's certainly amazing in that regard. So I thoroughly encourage you to check it out. Again, head across to the show notes, get hold of those resources. They're gold. And if you've got any questions, if you've got any questions that you want to be answered further, I'm sure Rob will be more than happy to come back on the show and answer them for you for something specific. Otherwise, just jump across to the Facebook group and you can ask them there. Rob, thank you so much for your time. I knew it was going to be good and it exceeded all expectations.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully the guys who are listening got lots of value from it. They go away and make some change, because information is one thing, but execution is another thing. So make sure they execute.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap, and we look forward to chatting to you next time.
Thanks, mate.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's the third and final episode of the podcast series and live training that I recorded with Rob from Pravar Group. We called it How to Escape the $1 to $3 Million Nightmare Zone to Reclaim Your Business and Personal Life. That was episode 3, called Profitability, Get Your Financial House in Order. It stemmed on from episode 2, which was called Performance Leverage Through Effective People Power. And then the first one of the series, which was called Profitability, Be a Master of It, Not a Slave to It. Guys, if you want to watch the live trainings, you can head across to the website, thesiteshed.com/blog/profitability for this episode, and you'll be able to see the links to the other ones from that page. They're really good, so I encourage you to do that. It won't cost you anything. And also, Rob's left behind some resources in the resource section, so head across to thesiteshed.com/resources, and you can get hold of them as well. They're in there for free for you guys to grab and use at will. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a review. You can leave one at iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. That would help a lot. And you can also post some comments there in the live training, which are on YouTube. And by all means, share it, guys. If you've got colleagues or friends you think that would benefit from that, which of course there is no doubt they will, by all means, just tag them in it or send it their way. And I'm sure they will return the love one day. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I will be chatting to you in a future episode. Peace out. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.